Black kid was humiliated by his coach, but what he did next left everyone speechless. Tuesday afternoon. Pristine artificial turf. On one side, billionaire sons in $1,000 cleats and designer gear. On the other, a 14-year-old kid in borrowed Nikes. What he was about to do in the next 3 seconds would silence coaches, millionaire parents, and change his life forever. You know what? If stories like this one get your heart racing the same way they get mine, you might want to stick around. Trust me, this one's going to blow your mind. It was a March Tuesday when the sound of cleats hitting artificial turf echoed through the most exclusive soccer complex in Beverly Hills. Elite Soccer Academy wasn't just a training facility. It was where tech billionaires and Hollywood executives paid $15,000 a month so their kids could pretend to be the next Messi. The difference between pretending and being the real deal was about to become crystal clear. Marcus Johnson, 14 years old, walked nervously through the marble hallways of the complex, his borrowed Adidas making a different sound than everyone else's custom gear. His mom, Michelle, had managed to get him a spot through a community outreach program the academy maintained purely for tax write-offs. One poor black kid among dozens of privileged white children from Beverly Hills. What could possibly go wrong? Coach Rick Thompson, a former MLS benchwarmer who never made it past the reserves, watched the boys' arrival with that familiar smirk. At 45, Rick knew exactly how the game worked at Elite Soccer Academy. It wasn't about developing real talent. It was about stroking the egos of wealthy parents who fantasized about their kids becoming the next Christian Pulisic. A kid from Compton could mess up this whole profitable charade. "Look what we got here," Rick muttered to his assistant. Another charity case taking spots from kids who actually belong. Dr. Philip Morrison, the academy's owner, descended from his glass-walled office wearing a $3,000 suit. At 52, this former Silicon Valley executive had turned soccer dreams into a cash-printing machine. Every parent paid a fortune believing they were investing in their child's future, when really they were just buying the illusion that money could create talent. "Coach Thompson," Morrison called out, "make sure our new scholarship student stays in the background. We can't have paying families feeling uncomfortable about the diversity." Marcus caught enough of the conversation to feel his stomach drop. His mother had worked double shifts at 3 different cleaning jobs for months to afford the uniform and registration fees. Michelle Johnson knew struggle intimately, but she'd always told her son that talent didn't care about your zip code. Maybe she was wrong. In the locker room, conversation stopped dead when Marcus walked in. Supreme hoodies, off-white sneakers, backpacks worth more than his mom's monthly rent. The silence was suffocating. "Yo, what's good, Section 8? One kid said with a nasty grin. "You lost or something?" Marcus didn't respond. His mom had taught him that words were just noise, but actions were thunder. And he was about to show them what kind of thunder South Central could produce. Diana Morrison, the owner's 16-year-old daughter, watched the scene from across the facility. Unlike her dad, she'd grown up watching real soccer, not the sanitized version her father sold. She could spot authentic talent, and something about this quiet kid caught her attention. Training started with basic drills. Rick deliberately put Marcus with the beginners, even though he knew the kid had been dominating South LA youth leagues for years. The strategy was obvious: humiliate him into quitting. "Let's see if you can even touch the ball without tripping," Rick shouted, firing a hard pass directly at Marcus. What happened next lasted exactly 3 seconds, but changed everything forever. Marcus didn't just control the ball, he cushioned it perfectly, flicked it up with his right foot, spun 180 degrees, and volleyed it into the top corner from 35 yards out. The entire field went silent. Not a whisper. Not a breath. "Lucky shot," Rick said quickly, but his voice cracked. Marcus grabbed another ball. This time he juggled it twice, nutmegged a cone with a rainbow flick, and curved it into the opposite top corner. The other kids stopped their drills completely. "2 lucky shots," someone whispered. Rick felt control slipping away. This kid didn't just have skill, he had something none of these trust fund babies possessed: the hunger that comes from having to prove yourself every single day of your life. Everyone back to drills. Rick yelled. "Fancy tricks don't win championships." Too late. Every person watching knew they'd just witnessed something special. And in the bleachers, a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses was scribbling notes frantically. Carlos Rivera, former LA Galaxy midfielder from the early 2000s, had come to Elite Soccer Academy on behalf of an MLS club. At 48, He worked as an independent scout, hunting for genuine talent in a sport increasingly dominated by rich kids with average ability. What he'd just seen made his pulse race. In 25 years of talent evaluation, he'd rarely seen a 14-year-old with such natural ability and composure. Marcus didn't just kick the ball, he spoke to it. During the water break, Carlos approached Michelle, who was waiting in the parking lot. "Excuse me, ma'am," Carlos said politely. "Could I have a word about your son?" Michelle tensed up. Random men approaching single mothers at youth sports venues rarely brought good news. "Nothing bad," Carlos smiled, showing his scouting credentials. "I'm a professional talent scout, and I need to discuss your boy." For the next 15 minutes, Carlos explained what he'd witnessed and asked about Marcus's soccer background. Michelle told him about the years in youth leagues, the trophies stacked in their tiny apartment, the volunteer coaches who always said Marcus was special. "Why haven't you tried getting him into a professional academy before?" Carlos asked. "Because kids from the projects don't get invited to professional academies," Michelle replied with barely contained bitterness. "This place was the first real opportunity we ever got." Carlos nodded grimly. He knew the reality. Extraordinary talents got overlooked every day in America because they couldn't afford the pay-to-play system that dominated youth soccer. "Mrs. Johnson, can I ask you to keep our conversation private for now?" Carlos said. "I want to observe Marcus a few more sessions before making any moves." When training resumed, Rick escalated his sabotage campaign. He put Marcus against older, stronger players, hoping to see him get bulldozed. The plan backfired spectacularly. Marcus didn't just survive, he dominated. His soccer IQ was off the charts, reading plays 3 steps ahead and finding spaces that college-bound seniors couldn't see. In 20 minutes of scrimmage, he assisted on 3 goals and scored 2 himself, shots that had paying parents involuntarily applauding. "This is impossible," one father muttered. "My kid's been here 3 years and can't do half of that." Dr. Morrison watched from his climate-controlled office, his expression darkening. This kid was making his customers question what they were paying for. That was very bad for business. After practice, Rick cornered Marcus. "Listen up, kid," Rick said in a low, threatening voice. "I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but you need to know your place. You're here on charity, so act like it. No more showboating or trying to embarrass the real players." Marcus looked straight into the coach's eyes. "Coach, I was just playing soccer. I didn't know that was against the rules." The simple honesty of the response left Rick speechless. The kid hadn't been disrespectful, just truthful. And somehow that truth cut deeper than any insult could have. Diana Morrison had been watching everything unfold. That night at dinner, she decided to call out her father. "Dad, did you see the new kid play today?" she asked casually. "I saw. And I didn't like what I saw," Dr. Morrison replied. "That type of player creates unrealistic expectations for our other students." "Unrealistic expectations like being good at soccer?" Diana shot back. Philip stopped chewing and stared at his daughter. "Diana, you don't understand our business model. These parents aren't paying to watch their children get outplayed by some kid from the hood. They're paying to believe their investment will pay off. Even when their kids have 0 professional potential." Diana pressed. Their argument was interrupted by the phone. An angry voice belonging to one of their highest-paying families. "Phil, we need to talk about this new kid. My son came home crying, saying he'll never be good enough to play professionally because he can't do what that boy does. This situation is unacceptable." Dr. Morrison hung up and glared at Diana. "See? This is exactly what I was afraid of." Over the following days, the campaign against Marcus intensified. Rick started playing him out of position, ignoring his best plays, and overpraising mediocre efforts from paying students. The message was crystal clear: real talent wasn't welcome here. But Marcus had inherited something powerful from his mother, an unbreakable spirit. The more pressure they applied, the better he played. And Carlos, watching from the shadows, filled notebook after notebook. Friday of the second week brought the moment that changed everything. During tactical training, Rick decided to make a public example. He set up Marcus alone against 4 of the academy's best players, including the son of the complaining parent. "Let's see if our street legend can handle real competition," Rick announced loud enough for everyone to hear. What followed was a masterclass that no one present would ever forget. Marcus received the ball at midfield, step-overed the first defender into the turf, chipped the second with a perfect touch, sidestepped the third's desperate slide tackle, and finished with a curled shot that kissed the inside of the post before nestling in the net. Pure silence. Even Rick couldn't speak for several seconds. "Fluke," he finally whispered, but everyone heard the doubt in his voice. Carlos couldn't wait any longer. He stood up and walked onto the field. Time to reveal his cards. "Excuse me," Carlos said, approaching Rick. "I'm Carlos Rivera, talent scout for LA Galaxy. We need to discuss this young man." The mention of MLS's most famous club stopped all conversation. Dr. Morrison sprinted down from his office. "Carlos Rivera? The former Galaxy player." Rick stammered. "Former player, current scout," Carlos confirmed. "I've been evaluating this kid for 2 weeks. He's MLS Academy material." Dr. Morrison arrived breathless. "Mr. Rivera, welcome to our facility. If I'd known you were here." "You did know," Carlos cut him off. "I called 4 times. Your people said you'd get back to me." Morrison flushed red. His staff had standing orders to screen out scouts. They typically poached talent without compensation. "Well," Morrison tried to recover, "I'm sure you've noticed several promising players in our program." "I've noticed one," Carlos interrupted, pointing at Marcus. "This kid has professional potential." The words hit the field like lightning. Other kids stared at Marcus with naked envy. Rick looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Professional might be optimistic," Rick tried to downplay. "The kid's got some skill, but he lacks." "Lacks what?" Carlos demanded. Rick had no answer. Technically, Marcus was superior to any player he'd coached in 15 years. Physically, despite his age, he had explosive speed and endless stamina. Mentally, he showed tactical awareness that college players would envy. "I need to speak with his mother," Carlos said. "It's just my mom," Marcus corrected quietly. Michelle was summoned, and 30 minutes later found herself in Dr. Morrison's office hearing an offer that would transform their lives. "Mrs. Johnson," Carlos explained, "LA Galaxy wants to offer Marcus a youth development contract. He'd train at our academy, receive monthly financial support, and if he progresses as expected, could join our first team within 3 years." Michelle couldn't process what she was hearing. Years of sacrifice, of believing in her son's talent against impossible odds, were finally being validated. "What about Elite Soccer Academy?" she asked. "Ma'am," Carlos smiled, "your son has outgrown this place. Honestly, staying here would hurt his development." Dr. Morrison tried one last desperate play. "Mr. Rivera, perhaps we could work out some partnership arrangement." "Won't be necessary," Carlos was firm. "What you run here isn't player development. It's expensive daycare for rich kids." The brutal honesty left Morrison speechless. Rick turned purple with rage but didn't dare challenge a former professional. When Marcus learned about the Galaxy offer, disbelief gave way to pure joy. But his first thought was about his mom. "Mom, what about your jobs? What about our apartment?" "Baby," Michelle said through tears, "my job has always been supporting you. And home is wherever we're together." News spread through Elite Soccer Academy like wildfire. Within hours, everyone knew the scholarship kid had been signed by one of America's biggest clubs. Reactions were mixed. Some parents demanded to know why their children hadn't attracted similar interest. Others began questioning the academy's value. A few honest ones admitted Marcus was simply better than their kids. Diana Morrison found Marcus before his final departure. "I wanted to apologize for how you were treated here," she said, "and tell you how much you deserved this opportunity." "Thanks," Marcus replied. "You were one of the only decent people in this whole place." "Can I give you advice?" Diana asked. "Don't let success change who you are. Your authenticity got you here." Coach Rick avoided Marcus completely on his last day. The kid's presence reminded him of his own failures and prejudices. When they accidentally crossed paths, Rick mumbled something that might have been an apology, but Marcus pretended not to hear. Dr. Morrison made one final attempt, offering Michelle compensation for developing Marcus's talent. Carlos, who was present, actually laughed. "Doctor, you didn't develop anything. You nearly destroyed his confidence. If he depended on what he learned here, he'd never make it professionally." 3 months later, Marcus was thriving at Galaxy's academy. His progress in an environment that valued merit over money was remarkable. Within 6 months, he'd been promoted to the next age group. By his first anniversary, he was occasionally training with the senior team. Michelle had quit all 3 cleaning jobs to support her son's career full-time. The academy's stipend wasn't huge, but it was enough for them to live with dignity for the first time ever. Then something unexpected happened. A man appeared at their new apartment near the Galaxy training facility. "Michelle?" The voice was hesitant. It was Derek Johnson, Marcus's father, who'd walked out when the boy was 5. Now wearing a cheap suit with graying temples, he attempted a smile that fooled no one. "What do you want, Derek?" Michelle asked coldly. "Heard our boy made it big," he said. "Thought I should come talk to him." Marcus appeared in the doorway, now 15 and visibly stronger from professional training. He studied the stranger who'd abandoned him and felt mostly nothing. "Son," Derek tried to approach, "I'm your father. Heard you're killing it at Galaxy. Maybe it's time we reconnected." "Reconnected?" Marcus repeated slowly. "Where were you when I needed cleats? When Mom worked 3 jobs to keep me in soccer? When I cried because rich kids called me names?" Derek started to interrupt, but Marcus continued. "You weren't anywhere. She was there," he pointed to Michelle. "She believed when nobody else would. She taught me what strength looks like. Look, son, things are different now. You're gonna make serious money, be famous." "Oh," Marcus smiled without warmth. "Now I get it. You didn't come because you missed your son. You came because you heard your son might be worth something." Derek had no response. His motives had been exposed with surgical precision. "Listen carefully," Marcus said quietly. "I have a mother who's worth 100 fathers. You're just some dude who happens to share my DNA. And I'd prefer you stay that way." Michelle watched with fierce pride. She'd raised not just a talented athlete, but a man of character. "Marcus, every player needs guidance from a father figure." "I have one," Marcus cut him off. "Carlos believed in me when nobody else would. Galaxy's coaches teach me discipline and professionalism. And most importantly, I have the example of the strongest person I know," he looked at Michelle, "who showed me that family isn't about biology, it's about who stays." Derek made a few more weak attempts before leaving defeated, carrying 10 years of abandonment that success couldn't erase. That night, Marcus asked his mom if he'd been too harsh. "Baby," Michelle replied, "harsh as walking out on a 5-year-old. You were just honest. And honesty is something I taught you to value." 6 months later, at 16, Marcus signed his first professional contract with LA Galaxy. The initial salary was $75,000 annually, with performance bonuses that could reach 7 figures. The signing ceremony was intimate but emotional. Michelle wept watching her son sign documents that represented the impossible becoming reality. Carlos, who'd become a father figure to Marcus, served as witness. "Remember what I always tell you," he said after the signing. "Talent got you here, but character keeps you here." "I'll remember," Marcus promised. "And I'll remember that without you and Mom, I'd still be getting disrespected by coaches who judge books by covers." News of Marcus's professional contract reached Elite Soccer Academy like an earthquake. Coach Rick, who'd been quietly fired months earlier for inappropriate conduct, learned about it on ESPN and felt his chest tighten. Dr. Morrison tried to capitalize on the publicity, creating marketing materials claiming Marcus had trained at their facility. The campaign lasted 2 days before Carlos threatened legal action for false advertising. Diana Morrison, now studying sports journalism at USC, wrote an article about Marcus's story for the campus paper. Titled "The Talent We Almost Lost," it exposed the pay-to-play system's failures and argued that American soccer was systematically excluding its best potential players. The piece went viral, reaching MLS executives who began creating programs to identify talent in underserved communities. Diana had turned Marcus's experience into a catalyst for systemic change. 1 year after signing professionally, Marcus made his MLS debut. At 17, he was the youngest player in Galaxy history to start a regular season match. The game was against LAFC in the biggest rivalry in American soccer. Marcus entered at the 60th minute with Galaxy trailing 2-1. In 30 minutes, he provided the assist for the equalizer and scored the winner in a 3-2 victory. His performance was so electric that ESPN analysts started comparing him to the greatest American soccer talents ever developed. European clubs began making inquiries, but Marcus and Michelle decided he should establish himself domestically before considering overseas opportunities. During his post-match interview, a reporter asked about his development path. "Marcus, you trained at an elite academy before joining Galaxy. How important was that experience?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "I learned a lot there. I learned that talent doesn't need privilege to shine. I learned that humiliation can fuel greatness. And most importantly, I learned to treasure people who see your potential when you can't see it yourself." "Do you stay in touch with anyone from the academy?" "Yeah, with Diana, the owner's daughter. She treated me with respect from day one. As for everyone else..." He paused meaningfully. "I hope they learned that respect isn't bought with money, it's earned through character." 6 months later, Marcus received his first call-up to the U.S. men's national team. At 18, he was among 23 players selected for World Cup qualifiers. Michelle, now 38 with a completely transformed life, drove her son to the airport for his first national team camp. "Mom," Marcus said before departing, "everything I've achieved belongs to both of us. My name's on the jersey, but this success is yours." "No, baby," Michelle replied through happy tears. "This belongs to everyone who proved that dreams don't have addresses." During the international break, Marcus started both qualifiers and scored his first national team goal. His performances attracted attention from Barcelona, Manchester City, and Juventus, clubs offering contracts worth tens of millions. At 19, Marcus finally accepted Manchester City's offer. The transfer fee was $35 million, making it the largest sale in MLS history. On his farewell day, he insisted on returning to his old South LA neighborhood to say goodbye to the kids still playing pickup games on the same cracked courts where his journey began. "You all taught me that soccer isn't just about skill," he told the group of wide-eyed youngsters. "It's about heart. And my heart will always be here." Carlos, now 52 and recognized as one of America's top talent evaluators, accompanied Marcus to LAX for his flight to Manchester. "Kid," he said in their final embrace, "you proved that talent is universal but opportunity isn't. Now you become the opportunity for other kids like you. Don't forget where you came from." "Never," Marcus replied. "And when I come back, I'm starting a foundation so other kids don't have to face what I faced." 3 years later, established as Manchester City's starting winger at 22, Marcus fulfilled that promise. He created the Michelle Johnson Foundation, providing free training and equipment to underprivileged youth while employing professional scouts to identify talent in overlooked communities. The foundation has already produced 8 professional players and serves over 800 children nationwide. Marcus invests 40% of his salary into the program, which has become a model for athlete-driven social change. During one foundation visit, a 12-year-old approached him with familiar eyes. "Mr. Marcus," the kid asked, "is it true you got made fun of for being poor?" "It's true," Marcus replied. "But you know what I learned? Humiliation only wins if you quit. And I never quit. What if kids make fun of me too? Then you remember that every champion started as someone nobody believed in. And you play even better to prove the doubters wrong." The kid grinned and ran back to practice. Marcus watched him go, knowing he'd completed a perfect circle, from rejected kid to inspiration for the next generation. Michelle, now 41 and the foundation's executive director, observed her son from the sidelines. "What's on your mind?" Marcus asked, joining her. "Just thinking it was all worth it," she said. "Not the money or fame, but seeing you become the man I always knew you could be." "And I'm thinking," Marcus said, embracing his mother, "that my greatest achievement wasn't any goal I scored. It was having a mom who never stopped believing in me." You know what? Stories like Marcus's remind us that greatness isn't about where you start, it's about refusing to accept limits others try to place on you. If this one moved you the way it moved me, there are plenty more where that came from. Because every champion has a story worth telling.